Now jump down to verse number 11. We're still in the Olivet Discourse. Notice what verse 11 says. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. In other words, before Christ returns, many false prophets will arise and they will succeed in deceiving many. Now move on down to verses 23 and 24. We're still in the Olivet Discourse. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is the Christ, the Messiah, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. These false messiahs and these false prophets will perform great signs and wonders, miracles in our words. And we're not talking people parlor tricks. They're going to perform great signs and wonders. The word great is translated from the Greek word megas. And it means great, huge, magnificent, spectacular, to the point that it's unbelievable, except it's believable. In fact, our word mega is transliterated from this Greek word. Now, notice what these verses are saying. These signs and wonders are going to be so great that if it were possible, they would deceive even the elect. And who are the elect? Christians. Born again believers. The big debate among scholars is it possible? Now, jump over to the book of Luke, chapter 21, because Luke adds something that Matthew leaves out. In fact, when we were going through the Olivet Discourse, if you remember, we went through the book of Matthew because he writes things in chronological order. Luke floats around. He's more, believe it or not, even though he's a Gentile, he floats around like Jews. But he adds information that Matthew left out. Notice what Luke adds. This is verses 25 and 26. And there will be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars. And on the earth, distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them from fear, and the expectation of those things which are coming upon the earth. For the powers of heaven will be shaken. Now I want you to notice the last part. For the powers of heaven will be shaken. The word powers is translated from the Greek word dunamis. And in this context, it refers to the power that rests upon the armies, forces, or host in the heavens. In other words, it's referring to angelic or demonic forces. Look at Ephesians chapter 6, verse number 12, and you'll see what I'm talking about. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers, there's that word, powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. All four categories listed in verse 12 dwell in the heavenly realms. Yeah. Now, Jesus said in Luke 21, verse 26, that during the tribulation, people are going to see signs and wonders in the heavens to the point that it seems as if the powers of heaven are being shaken. Saluo in Greek. Now, you might have heard that Greek word pronounced a different way, and let me explain why. Normally, when you're pronouncing Greek, Koine Greek, you actually do the syllables according to the consonants. So many people will pronounce this saluo. But because there's a diphthong there with epsilon, upsilon, you take the lambda and you put it with the first syllable, okay? So it's saluo. Now, the picture that's being painted with this Greek word is of someone who wants to get the dirt and grass off of a blanket, so they shake it out. The dirt and the grass come off of the blanket and it falls to the earth. So the implication is the demonic forces in the spiritual realm, or hyperspace if you will be coming into our dimension. The heavens are being shaken and those forces are manifesting in our world. Remember, Jesus said that it will be like it was in the days of Noah. That's the picture that's being painted.